Hey everybody. So the final draw for the third round of African World Cup qualifying came out today, and this is the penultimate uh, round of qualifying that will see 5 teams from Africa qualify for the World Cup. Now, the way that this was done is through the first 3 previous rounds of qualifying, the field was narrowed from 54 teams down to 20. And now, in this draw that took place earlier this morning in Cairo, we have the final 20 teams that have been sorted into 5 groups of 4. And the winner of each group will qualify for the World Cup. Uh, it's a double round robin fixture, which means that all 4 teams in each group will play each other twice, both home and away, for a total of 12 games, I believe. So every team will play the other team in their group twice. Um, and looking at the groups here, there's really no group here that I'm looking at it now that looks easy. And there's something I want to talk about. African football is not easy. It's very difficult to predict. I've said this before on my channel. Um, the disparity in quality between teams in Africa is not very big, and that's why the qualification phase and tournaments like the African Cup are generally almost unpredictable because upsets and surprise are more likely to happen than they are in CONCACAF or in CONMEBOL or in Europe. Um, Looking at the groups they're lettered groups A through E, so it's A, B, C, D, E, and Group B really stands out as a really tough group. If it's a group of death, I think it's Group B, and I'm going to tell you what the groups are in just a second. So in Group A, we have Tunisia, Libya, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Guinea. This, in my opinion, is the easier of the 5 groups. I think the Democratic Republic of Congo and Tunisia are probably the 2 happiest teams to have come away with this draw. No disrespect to Libya or Guinea, but they're not very strong teams in Africa at the moment. So this should really be between Tunisia and the DRC. A lot of people look at this on paper and they say, oh, Tunisia, the Carthage Eagles, traditional North African superpower, they should qualify for the World Cup. Um, but the DRC is a really good Central African team, and they finished in 3rd place, the bronze medal at the last African Cup last year in 2015. So I think they can cause a lot of problems and could potentially challenge Tunisia in this group. But Tunisia, obviously being the more talented team, the one with the most World Cup experience, they've reached, I think it was 4 consecutive World Cups between 1994 and 2006. They should be the slight favorites to get out of this group, but I can really see the DR Congo pulling off a not so much of an upset here, but give them a run for their money. When the draw came out, I was watching it live. A lot of the DRC table, the reactions, they were pretty happy with this draw. So we know that this is going to be a really tough, tight one between those 2 nations to advance. Group B, the one I think is the group of death, we have Cameroon, Algeria, Nigeria, and Zambia. Now, 3 of those teams I just named, Algeria, Nigeria, Cameroon, they all qualified for the last 2 World Cups in a row, and now only one of them are going to the World Cup. This is a tough group because Cameroon, Nigeria are traditional mainstay powerhouses in African football. Both teams have reached every World Cup since 1990 with the exception of 2006 when both Nigeria and Cameroon didn't make it. Um, but now, at most, only one can make it, and at least none of them might make it because Algeria is in the group too. Algeria, one of the only African teams that reached the round of 16 uh, a couple of years ago in Brazil. Currently, in my opinion, the best team in Africa with the most quality individual talent players playing all over Europe. Uh, so this is a really tough group, and Zambia are no pushover either. Zambia being the 2012 African Cup champions when they defeated Ivory Coast in a penalty shootout. They're going to have a say in this as well. So this is an extremely tough group. Um, I can see any four of those teams coming out and qualifying. But you look at the three that appeared in the last two World Cups in a row: Algeria, Cameroon, and Nigeria. Um, as far as who's the better team right now in current form, I'm going to have to give it to Les Fennecs, the Algerian team, because Nigeria right now is struggling. Um, ever since Stephen Keshi left uh, the helm of the managerial post, they have not been in good form. They haven't been very well. They failed to qualify for the African Cup. And Cameroon, while they have qualified for the African Cup in 2017, they're still rebuilding themselves after a disastrous 2014 World Cup. And with the departure of their German coach, Volker Fink, who wasn't very good to begin with. Um, So I'm judging this guys based on current form. Of course, anything can change, but I look at this group and I think that Algeria, if it plays out the way it should, Algeria should come out of that group and Algeria should qualify for the World Cup. Um, but it's tough because Cameroon, Nigeria, they've got a rivalry going on there. They're neighbors. They're two of the most common teams that play in the World Cup from Africa in the last 2 decades. But now we're in a situation where, like I said a few minutes ago, either one of them can qualify at most or none of them. And honestly, um, looking at it on paper, I don't think either of them will qualify. I think it's going to go to Algeria. So Group C, we have Gabon, Mali, Ivory Coast, and Morocco. On paper, Ivory Coast are the best team in this group. They're the current African champions. They reached the last three World Cups, but they failed to get out of the group stage in all three of them. We have Gabon, who is going to be the host nation of the African Cup next year in January. They're a pretty good side. They have Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, but they tend to be a side that relies too much on him. I don't know if they have enough quality going forward to get out of this group and qualify. Mali, who is a very consistent team in African Cups. They usually advance out of their group stage and they get to like the quarterfinals, semifinals. Mali is one of the most underrated teams, in my opinion, in African football, especially in Western Africa, French-speaking West Africa. Mali is a very tough squad. And Morocco, who all of a sudden is going through a renaissance, in very good form under their current coach, Hervé Renard, who is one of Africa's best coaches at the moment, who is the only coach now in history to have won the African Cup with two different countries. He won it with Ivory Coast last year, won it with Zambia in 2012. He's been only at the helm in Morocco for a few months now, and Morocco was the very first team to qualify for 2017 African Cup. They're in stellar form right now. So they're going to cause a lot of problems. About a year ago, I would have said Morocco is the weakest team in this group, but I think they could challenge for a qualifying spot. And if he stays as their coach after the African Cup next January and Morocco continues to improve, they could be co-favorites along with Ivory Coast to qualify for the World Cup. So this is another tough group that I don't really know. I can't really call it, but it's tough. It's really tough. If I had to say right now, I would say probably Ivory Coast and Morocco It's probably going to come down to those two teams as far as who advances. And for now, if I had to pick, which I'm not really going to, I'd probably say maybe Ivory Coast will just nick it and they'll get to their fourth World Cup. But I could easily see Morocco going, and I could also see Mali going. Gabon, no, I'm sorry, I don't think so. Group D, we have Senegal, South Africa, Burkina Faso, and Cape Verde Islands. This is another tough group. I actually think South Africa is the weakest team in this group. They've been in really, really bad shape ever since they hosted the World Cup in 2010. Very poor. Whereas teams like Burkina Faso came very narrowly close to qualifying in 2014. They came one goal away from qualifying. They lost to Algeria 3-2 on aggregate. And that was in a controversial manner. A lot of people think that Burkina Faso should have went to Brazil in 2014. The Stallions, that's their nickname. They have Senegal, who lately have been playing some of their best football since 2002 in the World Cup when they qualified the last time they reached it. Senegal is in excellent form right now. They're one of the best teams in Africa currently. The Lions of Teranga, I think they're undefeated. I think they have a 100% record in their qualifying group. So I think they should get out of this group. I'm gonna pick Senegal to qualify. And Cape Verde Islands, they're sort of an up-and-coming force in African football, but they're still not one of the best teams. They have a lot of good players that play in the Portuguese league because Cape Verde Island is ethnically Portuguese. But I'm going to say that this is too tough of a group. I think it's the winner of this group to qualify for the World Cup. It's either going to be Senegal or it's going to be Burkina Faso. And I'm going to go with Senegal, which leads us to final, Group E. My Pharaohs, Egypt, Ghana, Uganda, and the Republic of Congo. I think that this is a pretty straightforward group. It's not going to be easy, but I think it's going to come down to between Ghana and my Egyptian team. We lost horribly to Ghana in 2014 in qualifying. They beat us 6-1. I think this is a different squad, though, now. It's tough to predict this one. I really did not want to get Ghana again, but we had to get a pot 1 seeded team. Either way, slice it. I would really, really like to see Egypt qualify for the World Cup. For most of my fans now who don't know, I'm half Egyptian, hence the name Football Pharaoh. And it's been about 28 years since Egypt has qualified for a World Cup. The last time was 1990, and this is not the worst group we could have gotten, but it's not an easy group. I think we're better than Uganda. They've been absent from the world stage for a long time. I think we're better than Republic of Congo, but Ghana's a tough prospect. It's going to be down between Ghana and Egypt. Ghana and Egypt have a record against each other where it's not one-sided. We've beaten them several times. They've beaten us several times. They beat us last time in qualifying at home. We beat them at home. So really, it's going to come down to our head-to-head record and the results that we get in the group games against Republic of Congo and Uganda. But I don't really have a direct prediction now because I don't want to jinx it, and it's too hard to say. So that's it for my a look at the draw of the African qualifying phase. I think from Group A, Tunisia and the DRC look like the strongest candidates. From Group B, I think Algeria should get out of that really tough group, even though Cameroon and Nigeria are also in there. From Group C, I think Ivory Coast and Morocco are really strong, but don't sleep on Mali. Group D, I think it's down between Senegal and Burkina Faso. I think I'm going to give it to Senegal to qualify. And Group E, it's going to be between Ghana and Egypt. And I'm not going to make a prediction on that one. So leave a comment below, like, subscribe. What did you think of the draw? Who do you think is going to qualify? Remember, 5 teams make it. So who do you think is going to qualify for the World Cup from Africa? And I'll post the groups below. So until then, I'll see you later today. And as always, guys, Peace out, and I'll see you in my 2 more videos coming out today.